to kick things off, we have the Black Feather Ranger. First of all, he looks pretty cool, if I must say so myself, and he is a ranged archetype with 2 types of arrows at their disposal. While no slouch in melee range, the Black Feather's best strategy is to begin combat from afar, aiming manually and landing headshots for critical damage. If the ranger does get into a close range scrap, once the enemies disengages, they can let loose with specialized arrows to trigger debuffs or elemental damage before getting back in and finishing them off with their axe. So their starting gear is, you have an axe, you have a bow, oak arrows, poison arrows. That's actually kind of nice. Light shield and medium armor. Then I think it's interesting here because they actually added like a note from the developer. So picking up targets from afar on the move, landing headshots is in this type of melee focused game will always be satisfying, especially landing critical bow hits on the bosses, hitting their weak points which are otherwise unreachable most of the time by melee. Aside from this, playing a cunning woodsman from the frozen wastes feels like an apex predator on the prowl. I mean, like, that's kind of interesting though. It kind of illustrates or showcases that you kind of, in order to, I guess, play this game in the best, most optimal way, you probably need to have a mix between long range and close range attacks. I don't know if this character is quite my style. I want to be, a bit more close and personal, or maybe do some magic, to be fair. But yeah, sounds quite interesting. Then you have the Condemned. Wow, that guy looks like he's I don't know, I don't even know what we're gonna call that, but that looks kind of crazy, not gonna lie. So this is the masochistic character class choice for pain gluttons. The Condemned is a wretched prisoner who has suffered indescribable torment. Flimsy and feeble, they make for a very poor starting class. Alright, well, that's good to know. They use their waste buckets from their cells as a melee weapon. Waste buckets, bruh. It's kind of nasty, not gonna lie. They can throw rocks at their enemies. Oh no, they're throwing rocks! I feel like, the irony when, like, you're going into a boss fight, you're throwing, like, a rock at somebody, and they'd be like, is that all you got? Really? Like a rock? Is that it? But that won't achieve much except annoyance, alright? Alright, that's my point. I called it. As pitiful as that sounds, if they are fast on their feet, they can make reasonable progress, albeit paid in blood. Alright, so their starting gear is broken bucket fist weapon, throwing rocks, and light armor. So, literally gonna be a very difficult choice, or probably like a hardcore choice if you want to suffer. So, note from the developer, what did they say here? So you have no question they have one of the most iconic looks, and they are perfect for experts that are keen on optimizing their builds. So probably once you play the game, maybe once or twice, maybe there's like multiple endings here. This is probably the time where you just, okay, let's do the broken bucket fist weapon, pull out the buckets, literally. If the idea of starting with the worst class and thriving with it for bragging rights sounds appealing, then the Condemned is the class for you. But the number one reason to play this class is the two-handed sprint heavy attack, the dive kick. Dive kicking people off ledges puts the fall in the Lords of the Fallen. Alright, that actually sounds kind of fun, not gonna lie. But it is a Soulslike game though, so, is it gonna be worth the cost of, like, dive kicking people in the face? I mean, could be, but sounds quite interesting. Then we have the Dark Crusader, which is a starting class that you get for the deluxe edition class. That's kind of interesting though. I do know that you will be able to get this class as you progress and move on into the game, but yeah, I mean, like, I would assume it's quite a good class considering you kind of essentially pay for it. So, editors note the Dark Crusader is only a starting class in the deluxe edition of Lords of the Fallen, and is unlockable later in the game for standard editions. Okay, so at least you can unlock it though. A powerful melee class with radiant powers and a longsword capable of massive sweeps and deadly vertical strikes. The Dark Crusader is indomitable in melee, even more so than the Hallowed Knight. While it lacks in the range department, it more than makes up for it with excellent physical protection. The Crusader can charge into enemies, wielding the sword in the two-handed stance, performing devastating spins, and few can withstand the onslaught, especially early game. So essentially what they're doing is like, hey, if you want to pay a bit extra, we're going to give you like a really good starting class, so you can just do whatever you want. That's a bit of a sus move, but you know, it's their choice, not gonna lie. Not sure how I feel about that. I just think it should be like an equal playing ground for everyone there, but you know, it is what it is. So what is their starting gear? They're having Crusader's Greatsword, Crusader's Heavy Armor, and Rosary Catalyst. Note from the developer, the Crusader is our poster boy, looks absolutely metal, and is by far the most lore-appropriate character to crusade and right the wrongs in Mournstead. Okay, makes sense. And then you have the Exiled Stalker. It's kind of like an assassin, you know. Let's go. Andrew with the emojis. Happy days, happy days. What do you think so far, you know? You're probably gonna do the assassin? Huh? Alright, so Exiled Stalker. So the Exiled Stalker is an advanced class that fits the mold of the cunning and stylish rogue. Oh, okay. Kind of like a rogue, yeah. Assassin all the way, yeah, makes sense. This class wields twin daggers and is best described as the Dervish of Death, getting enchaining hits and then disengaging in a flash, only to re-engage half a second later is their speciality. He can also poison weapons like an assassin. See, there we go, the assassin style. This is an advanced class. It requires a lot of precision and execution and mastery of the terrain. As such, it is not recommended for beginners. Well, I mean, like, it sounds like a quite fun, you know, build though. Like, it's fast, you know, it's a lot of, you know, engage, re-engage. Of course, you know, maybe it's not the easiest class to begin with, but you know, if you want to play fast and you want to go, you know, kind of having like some poison, you want to, you know, have like a bit of a Assassin's Creed vibe to it, you know, maybe some stealth, you know, this is probably the way to go. Looks cool too. So what is the starting gear? You have 2 daggers, medium stalker armor, throwing dagger, and poison salts. Then you have the note from the developer, and they say the medieval assassin cutthroat trope is obviously incredibly important. The stalker is a stylish daredevil that appeals to many since it is the epitome of confidence and martial artistry. A deadly dervish of death with poisoned blades. That being said, this is a very demanding class, and its lengthy combos can land the players in hot water quite often. Alright, so essentially what it is like, yes, you're gonna be able to hit the opponent quite a lot, but it's like the damage is probably like quite low. So then it's just kind of like, looks like it will be quite a lengthy fight though, which probably is why they say it's not really for beginners. So it's good to know kind of like what options you have here. Hallowed Knight. Alright, so we got like the classic knight back, like the vagabond from Elden Ring, you know, the classic knight from Dark Souls area. So the Hallowed Knight is a classic sword and board archetype who is very versatile with a fast attack rate while also having fairly good armor. Despite how heavy the armor looks, the class is medium encumbered, allowing for decent dashes and rolls, open to spell casting from the onset. So this is kind of like, you know, so far the most variety character that we have. So obviously, you know, allowing for decent dashes and rolls, always important in Souls game, especially like in boss fights. Overall, like, this is a very key component. So probably a very good starting point and starting class. Open to spell casting from the onset. That I think is interesting. It might be my class because I want to do something with like fire or something like that. Looking at the trailer, it looks cool. Okay, so the starting gear, we have short sword, knight shield, heavy armor, grenades, healing over time consumable. Yeah, so this is by far going to be like your all-rounder. You know, as the note from developer here is saying, this is an all-rounder, a jack of all trades, great defenses, fast attacks, popular weapon. Tossing grenades is always good fun. The most popular archetype the errant knight. Yeah, so it's like, you know, if you want to be safe, you know, go with the Hallowed knight. You know, that's pretty much what the game tells you. Mournstead infantry. Okay, so we have a spear dude, extremely long melee range with an emphasis on defense, ranged javelin tossing, and being quick on their feet. Despite this class starting off with comparatively low damage, the range capabilities more than make up for those shortcomings. Two-handling the spear opens up massive lunging thrust and multiple fast pokes. Okay. Honestly, personally, not my type of class. You know, way too defensive. You know, obviously it's probably a good kind of poke build, you know, for those that want to just go around and poke people. So that's probably the way. Starting gear is spear, light shield, heavy armor, throwing javelins, healing over time consumable. So I guess it's like a bit more variety in terms of like a starting character, but a bit more defensive. And developer are currently saying this class is the infantry soldier archetype, spear on the shoulder, small shield, poking at enemies from afar. The common type of medieval warrior that conquered the lands, poking at his enemies with spear and javelin. The common rank and file soldier rising above its statues is another juicy medieval trope. Juicy medieval trope. That's a really nice word, not gonna lie. Alright, Orian Preacher. I kinda like the look in this one, not gonna lie. This one looks nice. Let's see what he can bring to the table. My guess is some sort of holy damage. The pious evangelist of the Orian Church, bestowing the wisdom of Arias, one hammer blow at a time. Okay, so he has a hammer. This is meant to be an advanced class for experienced players, while lacking in physical protection by donning robes and flimsy shield. The preacher more than makes for that with a tremendous hat. Oh yeah, that hat is gonna save us for sure. The hammer is weighty and impactful, breaking the will and posture of the heretics, and the starting healing spell grants the preacher unparalleled sustain. Not that they need it, their fate alone will see them through these trials and tribulations. Alright, so you got a hammer, you have apparently like a tremendous hat, which has some sort of shielding ability, I don't know. Starting healing spell grants the preacher unparalleled sustain, so you have a healing spell, so you can kind of, you know, utilize that. So starting gear, you have, let me see here, hammer, light shield, radiant catalyst, healing radiant spell, light armor, small mana stone consumable. Okay, and then the developer is currently saying, given how religion permeates all aspects of the game, the preacher feels like the most lore-appropriate class, bringing justice to the heretics, redeeming the sentinels, and smiting the demonic back from whence they came. And then there is that majestic hat that they sport. Yeah, overall, you know, it's a decent class. You know, like again, kind of more on the defensive side of things. Has a hammer though, which is interesting. Partisan looks pretty basic, but it has a crossbow and a flail. So a variant of the Hallowed Knight is the Partisan is a Mournstead Knight champion. His starting weapon, a flail, is more specialized and comes along with a crossbow, which gives him quite powerful single target range options, especially compared to the Knight's bomb that focuses more on an area of effect damage. The Partisan style of play is meant to be very relentless in their attack, especially given their unripe berries that buff stamina regeneration. So here's an interesting thing though. So in Elden Ring, the flail was actually one of the best starting weapons. The issue there was that it just came with a kind of weak characters. It wasn't really worth it unless you actually knew kind of, you know, the style of the game and so forth. But the flail was definitely one of the best weapons, like early. It was even used like a lot for like early target farming and stuff like that, killing the massive dragon in Hallowed, among other things. So you know, it could be a really good class, and considering it has a crossbow too, it could be a really strong character for like early boss fights, because they kind of talk a little bit about, you know, the ability to do long range and close range attacks. So what is the developer saying this time? So, clad in chainmail, swinging blades and shooting crossbows, the Partisan is the skirmisher archetype, perfectly balanced with armor that is not as heavy as the Hallowed Knight. It reflects the fantasy of an effective duelist for all situations. Yeah, a little bit of what I was talking about, essentially. It's just kind of like a very, you know, versatile character starting class. And then it literally depends how well, you know, the weapons hit. Then here we go. We have something very interesting, I think, for my side. Pyric cultist, and the look on this looks amazing. Honestly, ooh, this one is the artwork on this. Oh, it has a lot of potential. Let me just tell you that much. Okay, so let's see what they say. The Pyric cultist is an advanced class who is a fervent worshipper of Adyr and has sworn to see the natural order and humanity's one true god finally restored. A mage wielding pyromantic spells that engages enemies from afar with a very effective fire projectile. They also make good use of the heavy pole arm at their disposal when things survive the fiery barrage and close in. The staff is particularly effective against groups of enemies. While his initial fire magic is strong against single targets or close group targets, this may seem exceptionally strong, but take heed. The early area features Rogar enemies, and fire spells are not particularly effective against them. Well, I mean, like, in theory, though, your starting area should be the easiest. So, I mean, like, personally, I think this could be, like, a really good class. You know, it has, like, the fire spell, which sounds really cool. The character looks sick. And you also have the polearm, which is a heavy polearm, which means it should be able to do quite good damage early on. Obviously, the speeder is going to be a bit more on the challenging side. But I do believe this could be a very strong class. And a personal favorite, in my opinion. So what is the starting gear? We have cultist staff polearm, Rogar catalyst, infernal orb spell, medium armor, small monostone consumables. So you have medium armor though, it's not that bad. Note from developer, what are they saying on this? With their masks made from human skin. Yeah, let's go. These pyromancers are the anti-preachers, so to speak. Human cultists yearning for Adyr's return, spreading its pestilent teachings in the human communities and emulating the opposition. Aside from being agents of chaos and destruction, they also revel in blood-letting, collecting hands and using them as catalysts. This is a very Lords of the Fallen kind of class, since the embracing of the unfettered power that the Rogar wields is very satisfying and damning. You know what? I'm almost calling it. I'm like, I think we only have one more class, but personally, Pyric cultist might be the play. Might be the play. It looks really cool. Looks really cool. Looks really cool. All right, next one we have Udirangr warwolf. All right, looks really badass. Kind of like a Viking style to it, you know. Massive sword. They got the wolf armor kind of thing. Alright, so what are they saying here? All-out offensive class that focuses on overpowering melee strikes that can stagger foes, while still being fast on their feet. Right from the outset, this class has the ability to set their weapon on fire using fire assaults and swing it around like a maniac. So pretty much a barbarian, you know, if you think about like from Diablo or something like that, it's pretty much a barbarian. Which sounds fun. Another thing here that this confirms, though, is that they're using, you know, fire salts, or like salts, which you can kind of imbue on your sword in order to have certain kind of, you know, spells or effects on it. So that's a thing to notice for sure that we should keep in mind. The starting gear is longsword, throwing axes, medium armor, and fire salts. And a note from the developer. The warwolf is the barbarian archetype, called it, fur-clawed berserker, no shield, all in, devastating wide-sweeping attacks, and really handy axes to throw. This class fulfills that melee glass cannon fantasy with a little bit of Radiance or Infernal Magic, you can learn buffing war cries to further deepen the fantasy. It's literally a barbarian. That's literally what it is. Alright, so we've been through all the classes, and you know, to kind of summarize things, first of all, it's a nice variety of classes. I think they overall have you know, been able to have a nice variety of different classes and what they offer. You know, very typical again to I want to be a necromancer. So probably the cultist, I assume, more or less the closest one. I don't think there is any necromancer here, to be fair, Andrew. But if I would give like my final recommendation before we move on, I would suggest for anyone that is kind of new to the game or want to kind of just do like explore the game in an easy or like more casual way, I would definitely be doing the Hallowed Knight. That's my first recommendation. My second recommendation would be Mournstead infantry, a little bit similar but more defensive to the first one. And my personal favorite is gonna be no other than the Pyric cultist. Looks crazy. It has the fire attacks. It has the heavy polearm as well. I think it's a nice kind of mixture of like long range and short range attacks, which seems pretty obvious. And lastly, probably my, you know, somewhere down the road character will probably be Dark Crusader. Also looks good, but I would mention the Condemned because, you know, if there's one thing we learned from this article is that you can literally, what is it? You can throw rocks on people to annoy them, but you can also, wasn't this the one where you could, yeah, dive kicking people off ledges, you know? If you can't dive kick people off the ledges, then what are we playing? What are we actually playing? Huh? All right. Anyways, let me know what what your recommendation